Hey folks, welcome. Another Friday, another edition of Heavy Metallurgy. And this week we have the lovely and talented Myke C-Town with us to talk about the new Helloween album, the 16th album by Helloween. Much talked about, much praised. Is it worth the praise? Let's find out. Myke, it's good to see you. How have you been, man?
Oh, good. Can't complain. Can't complain a lot. I mean, I could, but what's the fucking point, right?
That lady on your lap will keep you in check.
This is true. This is true. She doesn't tolerate any complaining.
No. And Alan, yourself, how have you been?
Doing all right. Can't complain either. Just working along, trying to listen to some music here and there where I can. Looking forward to talking with you and Myke about some new Helloween.
I have been looking forward to this video, and I guess we should show the album in question. Let me do this here. Give me a second to... Oh, there it is. 16th album. Artwork by Elleran Cantor, who has done album covers for Testament, My Dying Bride, Sodom, Anacrusis, Atheist, and hundreds of other bands. Amazing talent, amazing cover. This certainly beats a very long, crappy streak that Helloween has had with computer-generated shitty artwork. And also, for those of you wondering which copy to buy, there's also the U.S. European edition. It's a 2 CD set. It's got the bonus tracks, Golden Times and Save My Hide. And there's also a Japanese edition on Victor Entertainment. It's got 2 more bonus tracks, which is Pumpkins United, which was their comeback, all 7 members united, doing a song for the first time, and another song called We Are Real. I don't know who wrote this one. It starts off with Kai singing on it. But, yeah, I mean, that one you're going to have to get from Japan, and it's not cheap. But, Helloween. I guess we're going to start up with... you guys' evolution with Helloween over the years. When did you stick with them? Did you fall off on them, or how did it go down for you, Myke?
So I loved the first 3 Helloween albums. I mean, I think I'm kind of like the typical asshole Fairweather fan, you know. They were one of the first heavy metal bands I got into in high school, just because they had a cool name. And yeah, I loved the first 3. I don't know. After that, I kind of fell off a little bit. I never got into any of the Andy Darius stuff at all. It just didn't. It's not even that it was bad. It was just, I'm trying to think of what was the album that people got really pissed off about. They were calling it like the sellout album, and it wasn't even really. They were acting like it was like a hair metal album.
The
really stupid name, Bubbles, Pink Bubbles, whatever the fuck it's called.
Oh yeah, that's with Kiska. Yeah,
that was around the album where I was like, I don't really know what's going on here. This is weird, and I didn't really enjoy it. And then Chameleon, I was just like, okay, I think I'm out. And then I just didn't buy anything after that.
Yep. So
this album is actually my return to even being interested in anything Helloween. I still listen to the first 3 all the time, but I did not bother with any of those middle era albums.
Right. How about you, Alan?
Similar. I got introduced to Helloween with Keepers Part 1 and worked. Keepers Part 2 was already out by then, so I quickly filled in, all the back catalog. Love all the stuff that they did with Kai originally, and then the Keepers albums. And when Pink Bubbles came out, that was right. There was a big delay. Most folks, I think, know the story, at least in a nutshell, that there was a big management dispute that led to a big label feud, and the band got sidelined for a couple of years. So when Pink Bubbles came out, several years had passed, and the album I don't think it even got a proper U.S. release. So it was like over a year before I even knew it had come out. Had to special order it as an import from the local indie record store. So, paid a small fortune for it. And I didn't hate it maybe as much as Myke did, but it was an album I kind of had to force myself to like a little bit.
Mm.
It was clearly a big step down from, Keepers Part 1 and Part 2. I found songs on it that I liked stuff, but it was always kind of like, well, I could play this, or I could just go play the Keepers albums instead.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then Chameleon happened. About that. So yeah, then I did stick around for a little bit of the Darius era. I got the first 3 albums that they did with him: Master of the Rings, Time of the Oath, and Better Than Raw. But I'll admit, part of it I couldn't quite get over, Darius replacing Kiske. Nothing against him personally, but I just did not care for his voice nearly as much as I did Kiske. Kiske is probably my favorite heavy metal vocalist of all time. And just like with each album that went past, it's kind of like, well, this maybe is okay. It's got some good songs, but it's not really it's not like old Helloween. And you hear it again, it's like, no, this still isn't like old Helloween. And by the time I got to Better Than Raw, it's just like, fuck it. They're not going to sound like what I want them to sound like right now. And, that was 98. Extreme metal was more of a thing. I was paying more attention to those formats. I wasn't as interested in power metal. And when I was interested in power metal, there were other bands that had come along that were actually hitting their peak around that time. You had Running Wild doing great albums. You had Blind Guardian at the height of their powers. At the time, Helloween very much felt like, they were way past their prime. Why am I wasting my time listening to this when I could listen to other styles of metal or just listen to better power metal albums by better power metal bands? So after Better Than Raw, I hung it up for a while. Every now and then, when a new album would come out, I'd at least make note of it. I might hear a song or two, but I never dove back in until this one. And that's where I'm at with Helloween.
Right on. I started with Helloween at Walls of Jericho. It was my first experience with them was the Doomsday News, the first Doomsday News comp. And I had to get everything by every band on that thing. And yeah, I mean, the Kai era is just great speed metal. Absolutely great. Perfect. Love that. The self-titled EP, the Judas EP, and then the Keeper albums were kind of a shock because it was a bit different. Obviously they started the whole power metal. They shifted their style to a little more positive, a little more triumphant. But yeah, the Keeper albums resonated heavily, of course. Pink Bubbles Go Ape. I ended up getting a dub of that and liking half of it. I think the first half is really quite good. It's, songs like Heavy Metal Hamster. It's a good song, but it's stupid. I mean, it's just stupid. But, Back on the Streets, Kids of the Century, those are all great songs.
The Chance is a great song on that.
The Chance is a great fucking song. But, it loses steam towards the end. And Chameleon, I got that in probably the last 10 years. Because I wasn't about to pay $25 for it back in the day as an import. I just couldn't.
Yeah, no, don't do that. Nobody should do that.
Yeah,
nope.
Right. Really, dummies. But
this is beer, and I want to drink a lot of it right now. Goddamn.
Listening to it now and hearing the band describe it as basically each member's solo album, they all wrote their own stuff and put it on there and took it as a solo. We're going to do whatever the hell we want. We don't care. Whatever, it is what it is. But the whole Darius era, I think I might have heard 1 or 2 songs off of the first album, Master of the Rings. And this isn't Kiske. I didn't initially like his voice. And like Alan said, I mean, brutal death and black metal was my thing at the time, and that's what I gravitated towards. And I stuck in that realm for a long time. And it wasn't until when they first got back together, they played Wacken, and it was telecast on YouTube or something. I saw it. And I'm listening to the performance and was like, wow, I really like his voice. I like these songs. There might be something I need to investigate here. And then I just started randomly buying albums from the Darius era and fell in love with it. I think for the time, he saved the band, really. He did what he had to do. He came in, he wrote good songs. They put out a long stretch. I mean, every single album is good to great. some of the later ones, maybe the last couple tracks aren't the best, but you know, they started writing really long albums. And yeah, I mean, I got within the last 5 years, I've really fallen in. Typically, when I grab a Helloween album leading up to this new one, it's been a Darius album, just because it's still kind of new to me, and the fascination with it is still strong. And you know, I find myself, you know, loving certain songs and going back to them. And my kids gotten into them, which is nice. Cool. And that you know, spearheads the push to listen to Helloween more often than, you know, whatever 8-bit computer dance music he's listening to at the time. Or early on, it was Kids Bop. Oh my God! If you guys, Kids Bop on Sirius XM is like kids singing modern pop hits. It is worse than bad. It's so bad. But yeah, here we are, new Helloween. Your initial thoughts on the album, Myke?
My initial thoughts. So I heard the Skyfall single, and I think we both verbally masturbated to that song a bit, Marty.
Mm-hmm. Still do.
But then, what'd you say?
I still do.
Yeah, right. But then I was still like, okay, well, I'm looking forward to this album. I don't know if they're going to bring it together because it just seemed weird. At first, I didn't know that they'd gotten all 3 dudes singing. So I was like, this just seems like a big clusterfuck. This song is great, but can they pull the album together? And it made me feel like when Brave New World came out, I remember I really enjoyed it for like a week, and then I didn't give 2 shits about it after that. But the second the album came out and I listened to it, I was in my car and I was like, wow, they really fucking did it. They really made an album that is incredible from start to finish. There's not a single moment on this album where I'm just like, that song could have been left off, or that riff's kind of mediocre. It was like, Jesus, man, where were they fucking saving all of this music for the past 25 years? Where was all of this? But yeah, this album is fucking incredible. I really cannot wait until they tour, because I want to see those dudes play this shit live, man.
Yeah. I do too, for sure. Alan?
Very similar take to Myke. Yeah, the video release for Skyfall was really great. It was a fun video. It was a cool song. The follow-up, Indestructible, also is like, okay, that's 2 good songs. This maybe is going somewhere, but still had that kind of, you know, nagging, you know, nervous, you know, voice in the back of the head saying, it's been how long since, you know, these guys were together and recorded something? And, you know, what is it really going to pull it off consistently throughout the album? And upon hearing the album, that was the first thing that started to strike me. It's like, this is a really good album start to finish. There's no fillers in here. There's no songs that, I feel like they should have left this off, or this one feels like a very just thrown in to fill stuff out. As like, every one of these songs is actually quite good. They all have their own personality. Everyone's, you know, being showcased really well. Everything feels very well balanced about the album, from, you know, production to the track list to rotating the singers. Rotating the singers was something I was a bit worried about. Like, how is that going to work? Is it just going to be that each guy sings on one song, and like songs 1, 4, 8, and 12 are Kiss, and songs 2, 5, 9 are Andy or whatever? But no, they actually did a very good job of blending it without it being jerky or awkward. And so, that was, you know, really the take. Like Myke said, you know, they did it. They pulled it off. They wrote a really strong album, start to finish, that included everything it needed to and fit all the pieces together, you know, quote unquote, correctly. So, I was, you know, pleasantly amazed at, how well they did pulling this off.
I'm not as amazed because I'm much, like I said, I'm a fan of the Darius era, and I thought their last album, My God Given Right, was really good, other than the last 2 songs start to get a little long. most of 3/4 of that album is really solid, really good. And I like Darius's vocals, and knowing that he is very much a key songwriter for this band.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that the album wasn't going to differentiate much. I was just, I've said this before. I was really, I was afraid. I love Gamma Ray. I love Unisonic, which is, Kai Hansen's other two projects. Michael Kiske sings with the Unisonic albums. They're great. They're great albums. They sound very Helloween-esque. I would have been fine if they didn't reunite, to be completely honest, because I like what Helloween was doing before, and I like what the other bands were doing before. So I went in with super high hopes, but was a little apprehensive, but I was really surprised and blown away at how well they, like you said, managed it. I mean, 3 vocalists, it doesn't sound wrong. It doesn't sound goofy. Songs like Fear of the Fallen, when Darius and Kiske's voices unite, it's magic. They sound fucking great together. And even Darius and Hansen, Hansen doesn't do a ton of singing on the new album, but if you listen to the single, there were 2 versions of the Skyfall single. One of them had like every other line was a different singer. It was kind of excessive how they did that. They did it just for the single. It's amazing. There was a couple times I couldn't tell if it was Hansen or Darius singing, because their rough screaming style does have a lot of intersecting points. Mm-hmm. But the album, to me, my initial reaction, I went in with, holding my breath, because I knew the 3 songs I heard were great. Mm-hmm. And like Alan said, and I was apprehensive there'd be, some deep tracks that would be kind of stinkers, but you guys nailed it. The whole album, I think my first time through Robot King, first few times, it took me a while to get into that song because of where they dropped the chorus. They the build up to the chorus was so much of a climax or a crescendo that I wanted the chorus to fall at a convenient point in my head, and it didn't. They kept pushing it back. So, I mean, once I discovered that was what was bothering me about it, I got over it pretty quickly. But from start to finish, man, what an album. Production, from the art, the production, the air traffic control of 3 amazing shredder guitar players and 3 great singers. They did it so well. It seems like they've been doing it all along. What I thought, anyway.
The only song that had to grow on me was Best Time, and that was only because I thought the vocals were weird at the beginning of it. It almost sounded like they were going to be like a weird, like new wave song or something. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But it's like the second the guitars come in, I'm like, okay, this is fine. I still, when I put it on, I still do think the first couple of lines are kind of wonky, but now I do think it's still a great song.
Well, let's get into the songs. Favorites, least favorites, surprises?
Alan?
Let's see. Least favorite, looking at the track list.
That's what I'm doing too.
Yeah. Least favorite is Angels.
Oh my God, you are wrong.
Fuck you. Canceled.
Veto.
No, and it's a good song. There's one thing. It's kind of like Mike just said with Best Time. There's one line that throws the song a little out of equilibrium for me. It's the first line in the chorus, because they kind of slow down and enunciate it in kind of a weird way. And in the second line, they kind of get right back, into the melodic groove of it. But the first, line, when angels, give you nightmares, it's like they're slowing down and they're singing it like a half beat too slow or something. So it's just a little jarring when that line comes up, because it throws you off the rhythm of the rest of the song.
But before you go any further, that to me is the 3rd best song on the album. And that song, that line that you just talk about, they slow it down. It's like it builds up more of an impact when the chorus finally hits in full. When Angels Cause You Nightmares, it like drags, and then when it finally kicks in, it seems like it has more impact to me. I don't know. I really like that feel on that song, to be honest.
That's cool. Anyway, it does, and maybe if it wasn't the only line that was done that way, maybe if the whole chorus was kept at that pace, it wouldn't throw me off. It's just, again, you're kind of keeping time in your head, and then they do that, and it's like you gotta slow it down for a second. But then on the second line, you got to get right back to the previous beat. So it always sticks out a little bit to me.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the song is pretty good.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I've got to pick a least favorite, hey, if you got to pick a least favorite, that's going to be the one I pick. But it's still a good song overall. Just that thing always throws me off.
But you, Mike?
I don't mean to upset you, Marty, but I actually do agree with.
Stream's over.
I'll tell you why. I like, as I said at the beginning, I like those first 3 Helloween albums when they were fucking fast, serious balls. So those are the songs that I gravitate to more on this album. And
there's a lot of it.
There's a whole lot of it, but Angels isn't one of those. Angels is where they kind of slow it down a little bit. It's a bit more epic. It's definitely nowhere near a bad song. Nowhere near a bad song. It's just, it's not one of the songs that I sing when it comes on. You know, Indestructible comes on, fucking Indestructible. I'm fucking screaming the entire, but Angels, I'm just like, all right, it's fine, you know. But that's the only song on the whole album where I don't get excited.
Well, you know.
Sorry.
You wrote it off the island, Marty.
For me, initially, Robot King was my first. Not so sure about this song. It grew on me. I think now, even though I still like the song, is Down the Dumps. It seems like the Viketh songs, Michael Viketh, were the musically most correct to the old Helloween stuff. But the lyrical concepts were really weird. I mean, if you read the lyrics to which songs he did Out for the Glory, Robot King, and Down the Dumps. You read the, you know, spilled coffee on my shirt, you know, type of lyrics. It's like, what the fuck is this shit? But, you know, for the most part, I say they're my least favorite songs. I mean, that doesn't mean anything. They're still really good songs. I mean, they're and Angels. One thing that a friend of mine who isn't into Helloween at all, I sent him the song trying to get him into the album, and he's like, "This is a good song." He says it reminds me a lot of Dream Theater, which I didn't think of it that way, but I guess maybe, you know, it has kind of a dark undertow to it. Maybe so, like that. But even the bonus tracks that they included with the album, Golden Times and Save My Hide, they're not throwaway tracks. I mean, for me on this album, the Sasha, I don't want to get his name right, Gerstner.
Yep.
I really enjoyed his output on this. He did Best Times, which is a pretty positive, happy-go-lucky kind of song. Angels, which I think is great, a great fucking third best song on the album. And then he also did Golden Times, which has Kiska singing on it. And that's a great song. There is just a very uplifting feel to that chorus that takes me back to older, you know, Keepers era Helloween type stuff. Just hearing Kiska sing it, and just the way the passion and the emotion in the chorus is just very invigorating. But, you know, the Darius songs on here, well, I'm skipping over. I'm going to talk about the songs that I liked. Out for the Glory, that's another Viketh song. Really good, strong opener. Fear of the Fallen, second best song on the album. That song is a great Darius song. Absolutely great. He nailed it. I've tried playing that thing on the guitar. I don't know how the fuck they play that clean. It's so fast. And I don't know how unless they did like a drop tuning on it just to use one finger. I can't play it clean. I don't know how the hell they're doing that. Not that means anything, because I'm not a great guitar player, but Best Time, you know, I can understand Mike's, you know, it's a very positive, upbeat kind of song. Mass Pollution's a great Darius song. It sounds like it could have been on the last album. Just a very much, you know, rock. What is Ken saying here? Sense of old Helloween with a glimpse into their future. They did a great job blending. They did. They absolutely did. And we'll discuss that for sure. Rise Without Chains, another great fucking Darius song. I mean, talk about a guy that came in. I mean, they still call him the new guy. He came in, took his own style and adapted it really well with what Helloween was doing. Even though the earlier stuff with him, I initially thought was maybe a bit more commercial sounding, it's still Helloween and it still works. And he's all over this album, does an amazing job. Indestructible is a bass player, Marcus Grosskopf, wrote that song. It's great. Robot King, Cyanide, another great Dara song. Love the chorus. Really great chorus on that song.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Skyfall. That is easily Hanson's maybe top 5 best songs he ever wrote.
Mm-hmm.
Leading right up there with Ride the Sky, Man on a Mission off of Gamma Ray's Land of the Free. And he's written a lot of amazing songs. I mean, it's hard to pin it down to 5, but Skyfall, wow. I mean, you want to talk about what would be considered a continuation of the Keepers feel. That is definitely fucking it for sure.
Yeah.
But what else we got here?
Mike, what are some of your favorites?
Oh, man. Okay, so my favorites definitely Out for the Glory, because it fucking kicks this record off perfect.
Yeah.
Fear of the Fallen is also one of my favorites.
Yep.
Mass Pollution, Indestructible, and I agree, Skyfall is, weirdly enough, in 2021, it's one of my favorite Helloween songs. So, yeah.
All excellent choices, yeah.
What do you think, Alan?
Let's see. As of today, I would say I think I would pick Fear of the Fallen as my favorite because, yeah, it's a very good song. Like you mentioned before, Marty, the way they blended the vocals between Darius and Kiska is just really spot on perfect for that track.
Yep.
It's really good. I like Out for the Glory a lot. Like Mike said, it's a great opener for the album. Indestructible kicks ass. I really like Robot King. That one has a great pacing to it. It builds really, really well. Has a great speed. Kind of storms along really well.
The screaming at the end is crazy too.
It just keeps building and building, going. It's really, really good. And yeah, Skyfall. The thing that really impresses me with Skyfall is when Helloween first did songs like Halloween and Keeper of the Seven Keys. It was kind of revolutionary to do these kind of big, 9, 10, 12-minute epic tracks. That wasn't something bands did or did very rarely back then. And since then, it's become a cliche. Everyone and their mother has the 10-minute song thrown in the album somewhere, and most of the time they're completely a waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
They drag on forever. The whole thing, you're like, this song could have been 3 minutes long, it would have been fine. The other 7 minutes are completely useless. And so, yeah, for them to come back and deliver, it's something that strikes me about this album overall is, these are old masters showing everybody how you do it right. These are the guys coming back and dusting things off, and it's just being like, okay, let us give you a lesson on how to make a kick-ass power metal album. When you do your 10-minute song, you make it this way. You keep it moving along. You keep mixing it up. You have the pacing and the story engaging so that people want to keep listening. It doesn't ever drag. It doesn't ever repeat very badly. It's a clinic. They're putting on a demonstration, and they nail it. Like they always could with those longer songs. And it's something so many bands get wrong, and they get so right. So, yeah, Skyfall's got to be on there for one of the best tracks, too.
That's such a good way to put that, because when you listen to that song, there's definitely so many moving parts. And I love that it completely changes mood, like maybe 3/4 of the way through it, then it brings it right back.
The dynamics are outstanding. Yeah. The thing that really impresses me about the album is, if you look at it on paper, Helloween has now 6 songwriters in the band.
It's crazy.
But Kiska didn't write anything for this album. So, there's 5. But each member of the band, the album does not sound like this to me. It sounds unified as a definite Helloween album.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can tell that a song that Darius wrote. Sasha's, I had to look and see who wrote the songs that Sasha wrote, because I think his tracks sound a lot like that Golden Times. That song sounds like an old Helloween song. It's just amazing to me, and like they wrote these songs independently and then came together with them. So they came prepared, and the album sounds so consistent. And even though it's a long album, it's still very consistent and strong. What were you gonna say, Mike?
Oh no, I was just saying, I didn't know that they wrote them individually, then came together.
Yeah, that's normally what they do. Like Hansen wrote that Skyfall himself.
Oh
Isn't that
wow!
amazing? One guy wrote that. It's crazy.
Wow.
I think he got together with the drummer and Marcus to iron some things out. But I've been watching a ton of interviews by these guys, hearing some of the the insight into the album. But like Viketh, he wrote all the songs in February and brought them they all had like a meeting at a hotel, basically showing each other their demos. And they're all like, oh, let's do this to that song and this to that song. And, they'll pick this one, this one, this one, this one. And Skyfall didn't come until much later. Kai was apparently late to the party with coming up with a song, but he wrote a long enough one that could have been 3 songs. So, I mean, it all evens out. It's funny how that all works. But another thing about the album that really blows me away is the guitar work. Holy shit.
Yes.
Holy shit. I mean, there is not a lead on the album that sounds excessive, wrong, out of place. Everything sounds like it's in the right place. It sounds like Andy LaRocque is doing all the solos because he's another guy that doesn't play a wrong note. These guys are so in sync with what they do. They've been doing it since they were high schoolers. This has been their career, their entire lives. And they all share the duties well. And the guitar work is amazing. Hats off to them for that because, wow, it's incredible. Really, really brings a lot of it's the frosting on the cake, really. I mean, it makes the songs a little longer and it adds a lot of character to them, I thought anyway.
No, it's great. But at the same time, it's never protruding out of the songs. It's never overbearing. Mm-hmm. It's not like now we're going to swamp everything with, guitar solo, but it's there. It fits into the song perfectly. And yeah, they all rip, they shred really well without needing to dominate the song or anything. Again, it just feels very balanced. These aren't guys that are fighting to see who gets to be, center stage spotlight for the next solo. They're all taking their turns. They're all putting on a clinic, and they're making it fit together within the context of the songs perfectly so that it doesn't need to dominate the song, but it's, a great part of every song.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like they definitely, all the band members checked their egos at the door, and that's another thing I came across in all the interviews I've seen. They all came into this wanting to do it this way. They all came into this very positive about it. And, like Sasha, he's an amazing guitar player. During the live tours they did, he had no problem taking a back seat and doing the rhythm stuff while the 2 original lead players were up front, doing their dual leads that they've, come to be known for. It just really added. It's really nice that you don't hear that. The ego doesn't come across in the music, and it allowed the songs to take root. And again, it's in one of those albums I listened to for the first time and went, holy shit, this is just wow. Someone was asking, well, before we get into the production and stuff, I do want to ask your thoughts on the band Fully Reunited. How did we say it here? Was it truly better with all of them together, or was it necessary? What do you think?
Personally, I don't know if I can say it was better with all of them. I think the songwriting is incredible, but did we need 3 dudes singing? Probably not. I think one person could have handled it fine. Because like you were saying earlier, Marty, there's some points where the vocals do kind of blend together. I don't think there were any songs where the vocals clashed, but there were definitely songs where there were 2 singers where it wouldn't have mattered if one or the other did the entire thing. Sure. But am I complaining about everybody coming back? Nah, it's fine, but didn't need everybody singing.
Yeah. Alan?
I'd say it's hard to say better because better than what? I can't say if it's better than what it would have sounded like with only 5 of them because we'll never know. Mm-hmm. I think it's better in the sense that it has definitely given the band, a shot in the arm in terms of visibility. While they've still carried on just fine all the years. Myke and I are not the only people who have checked out for a long time on Helloween because 2 particular members weren't in the band.
Right.
So, bringing Kai and Kisk back into the fold definitely, raises the band's, visibility. And like we've all been saying, it works very well together. Even though it's, a pretty cluttered stage with 7 guys there, they all are working together very well. The songs, everyone's got a part to play. They're doing it very well. It all fits together just fine. So I don't think there's any problem really with all 7 of them being back in the band. It could have devolved very quickly into just a quick little hype for show. Hey, yeah, they're back in the band. Here's some half-ass songs we threw together just to capitalize on the name recognition. But they didn't do it that way. They made sure everything gelled very nicely and put together a really, really strong album. So I think it worked out great having all 7 in there.
Having embraced the Darius era so much, did they need to be there? No. I think Helloween would have come back with a good record without him. But we wouldn't have had Skyfall. Skyfall would have ended up a lot differently. And Kiska, he's the voice, man. He's the voice of this style of music, and him on anything is a good, definite, a sharp tool to have in your arsenal for sure. If it started off, to me, I was worried it was just going to be hype for the tour. Maybe they put out an album that was okay, blow them up, and then they break apart again. But man, hearing all the interviews, it sounds like they intend on continuing with this, which is good. And it's obviously worked so well, and it's hit number 1 in Germany, which they've never done. They've never hit that. It hit number 1 in UK. Oh, wait, number 1 in Spain. It's rising the charts in Japan. It's rising the charts in UK. I think 58 or 78 in the US top 200. I mean, It's all over the world. It's climbing the charts. All 7 of them getting back together, returning Kai and Kiska back to the fold, if it got people interested in caring about Helloween again, then I'm completely fine with that, because it's a band. I mean, they're one of my favorite bands. They have been since high school. And, I might have drifted away for a number of years, but coming back to it, it's been a lot of fun. It's been life enriching for sure, in a time where I was getting really super tired of the negativity of death and black metal. I still love it. Don't get me wrong. I just, we all need to change up every once in a while. And Helloween's been a lot of fun, and it's good. And it isn't just fluff. I mean, you listen to these songs, 3 guitar players, there's a lot of depth and dynamics and layers to this music. If you really listen to it, there's a lot of shit going on, which is impressive. I mean, I'm in a death metal band. We write, a riff and then maybe a harmony over the top of it. Hearing guys that have been doing this their entire lives and putting so many layers on top of layers, it's a whole different way of building a song. It's very impressive from a musician standpoint, for sure.
Yeah, I had mentioned Brave New World earlier, and when I look back at that album, it just seems like it was kind of a waste having 3 guitar players, because they weren't really doing much of anything. It's still a good album, but you can't really tell that there's 3 dudes adding different layers to the music. Whereas with this, it just feels different. It feels like that's why I'm really surprised that you said that they wrote the song separately. I would have thought they came into a room and jammed out the old-fashioned way. I'm actually really surprised.
No, I guess the song Angels, Sasha had most of it, and they got together in a hotel room on tour. Him and Andy Darius got together and finished the song together.
Wow.
So I mean, there was some collaboration. I'm sure once they're putting it all together, and they all put their own stink on it. I know they'd leave chunks for everybody to put their own solos, and I'm sure there was, changes within the song. But I think the meat and potatoes of each song was written by each songwriter and brought to the band as a full, probably releasable sounding demo. I mean, Andy does all his stuff he's got his own studio. He's recorded some of the Helloween albums in the past, so I'm sure his stuff sounded like album ready.
Yeah.
Something you mentioned when we chatted a few days ago, Marty, was, I think you said it was one of the interviews with Darius, that when he was writing one of the songs, he was writing it very specifically with the mindset of Kiska singing it.
Yeah.
That, he was basically writing a song for the other guy, quote unquote, to sing.
Yep.
So that, even though they maybe were writing, in their own corners, they weren't just writing, from their own standpoint. They really were thinking about, like, okay, I'm writing this song, but I want this guy to, take the lead on this. And as someone mentioned, I think Chris mentioned it in the comments below, it shows that, they're, really put their egos aside. And these are all veteran musicians. They could have very healthy egos if they wanted to, and piss and mark their corner of the stage or whatever. But it doesn't seem like they were doing that. That they were writing individually, but writing with other band members very much in mind. It's like, no, here, this song is for you to sing. Hey, this song is going to really highlight these guys over here, not just me. So it as Mike's saying, I think it shows that it's kind of surprising they could write it in isolation from each other, but really we're writing it with a band mindset, not just individual mindsets.
Both interviews,
like on Chameleon. I need more beer. I said it. Had to take a
drink.
Goddamn Red Sox and the Smell of Feet. I hate that fucking song. Sorry.
Well, I've seen a bunch of interviews with all the members, and the unifying point that both Kiska and Darius have said in interviews, they sound relieved. Darius, when he took on the job, he was filling in for Kiska. He was following up Kiska, and he got a lot of shit from all the fans because he couldn't sing like Kiska.
Mm-hmm.
And Kiska was pissed at Andy back in the day because that guy took my job. But they got together, they became best friends, and when they came down to recording stuff, if some of the stuff that Andy wrote was outside of his range, Michael, you take a swing at this, see if you can do it. So there was a lot of collaboration that way on how they broke up the songs and the singing. And it sounds like live, if one guy's doing one of his songs, the other guy can go in the back and have some wine and relax. It's less tearing on your voice. I mean, these guys, they sound relieved to have each other in the band, to be completely honest. And for what they do at their age, that's great. If it gets them down the road a little bit, a few more years, putting out some more good records, I'm all down with that. And again, the ego completely in check, which is cool. Because I think, like in the Chameleon era, it was ego bad. I mean, Kiska had it. They were all pissed about one thing or another, whether it was business. Kiska was never happy that Hansen left the band, and things changed after that. And so, I mean, that's why that album turned out to be kind of like a solo album. They all just, instead of arguing and stuff. Yeah, exactly. This comment here doesn't have to sing "Evil Fly Free" anymore. Holy shit! But let's talk about the production for a minute. It's being stated that it's all recorded on tape, but the way I understand it is the drums and maybe the bass were recorded on tape, which is amazing that Danny could play. I mean, there's a lot of error correction when the modern day of Pro Tools, everything is perfect. If you fuck up, you can fix it. If you're following a grid and a click track, you can move the beats to fit in perfectly if you don't play it right. But this guy did it all on tape, which is amazing. And I think they recorded the bass as well, but I think all the guitars were recorded digitally, and then they sent it to some studio in New York that processed all the guitar stuff and everything else through analog stuff to give it so it matched the drums and everything. So it's not 100% purely digital. But what do you guys think of the production and the mix?
I think it's perfect. It's extremely clean. It definitely, sometimes when music sounds this clean, it sounds a bit too artificial for me, and it doesn't have heart and it doesn't have any soul to it. Not feeling that with this, those riffs have soul, those leads have a lot of heart. So the fact that the production is so clean, I feel like it almost had to be, but yeah, the production is to me, it's impeccable. The drums sound great. Everything sounds thick. When the album is heavy, it's fucking punchy. When it's clean, it sounds perfectly clean. I mean, they really put their ass in this shit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Mike 100%. It's clean, it's clear, but it's never cold. It's never sterile. It never, that kind of production, can sometimes suck a little bit of the energy, a little bit of the punch out of your songs. And that didn't happen here. Whoever's tweaking those dials knew exactly where to balance it. I keep using the word balance. But yeah, it's got, great sonics to it, but it still has all the energy and all the drive that you want when you're listening, to this kind of, European power metal. You can hear everything clearly. Nothing's too loud in the mix. Nothing's too soft in the mix. Nobody's buried in the mix. Nobody's taking it over. Everyone is balanced. It sounds really, really good.
To me, I agree. It's a very warm sounding production. On vinyl, it's a little bit bassier. I think songs like Fear of the Fallen, I noticed the drums get a little quiet, but there's so much shit built on top of those drums. I mean, who knows? There's 3 guitar parts for sure. Who knows how many extra they added to it? I have no idea. But in the harmonies and shit, there's a lot going on. But that would be my only real complaint, but it's not really a complaint. Once in a while, I realize that the drums might be a little bit buried here and there, but it's not always. One thing that I think is really good on the album is the bass sound. Holy shit, Marcus's bass. He's always been an amazing bass player, but some of the bass lines he throws on this shit is fucking tasty. He's a really good, and the way it cuts through that production, it's right out there in your face, but it isn't stepping on anything. He's living in his own little frequency, and man, he's just crushing it on the bass. The bass work is outstanding. Really does a great job on this for sure. Artwork we already kind of talked about. I guess in closing, I want to ask you guys, and knowing both of you guys may not have been following.
Maury, one thing I wanted to touch on though before you go to that, if it's okay.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of really positive reviews.
Oh, we skipped that.
Folks
That's right.
Responding to it really, really strongly, like we are. There are people though who aren't happy with this album. There are some reviews and critiques of the album that are a lot more lukewarm. I haven't heard anybody say the album sucks, but I have heard more than one person say,
Me too.
I was expecting this to be Keepers 3, and it's not Keepers 3, and as such, I'm not really into it. And so I wanted to bring that up because
sorry, I had it got covered up, and I totally skipped that. But that's a good point to bring up.
Oh yeah, no worries. Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because that is something that there's definitely a contingent of folks out there who seem to have that take on the album, that they were expecting Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 3 because the lineup's back. Almost everyone who's alive and wants to be involved and can be involved is back in it. And they didn't get that. And as such, they're feeling kind of let down or disappointed with the album. So, Mike, what do you think about that point of view on the album?
Look, man, people can be upset about whatever they want to be upset about. People can not like whatever they don't want to like. And I don't ever expect people to share my opinion, or I don't ever get upset when people don't share my opinion. But that's fucking stupid. That's fucking stupid. Did you get a good album? Yes. Then shut the fuck up, dude. Like, who cares? Like, are people really upset that it's not called Keepers of the Seven Keys Part 3? People just want to complain. It's like, God damn it. They didn't have to give us a good album, guys. They didn't have to do any of this. But we still got an incredible album. And since people can't complain about how amazing the songwriting is, they can't complain about the production, they certainly can't complain about the vocals, what else can they complain about? Oh, shit. Well, it's not called Keeper of the Seven Keys 3, so I'm mad. Well, go be mad, dude. Go be mad. That sucks you're mad. I'm fucking happy as hell.
Yeah.
Marty, what's your take on it?
Well, I went into this knowing that it wasn't going to be Keeper Part 3. The band did an album called Keeper the Legacy.
Yeah.
And out of the Darius era, that sometimes is my least favorite, although it's been growing on me a bit lately. But you're not going to... it was recorded differently, different producer, different times, different technology, different younger spirit to it. And let's face it, Darius, he's a huge part of Helloween. He's not going away. And he's a big songwriter, and he had nothing to do with the Keeper albums. So, I mean, knowing that he would probably have 3 to 5 songs on this album, it wasn't going to be just like Keeper. But in saying that, I think, as I stated earlier, all the members, the contributing writers to this album, they have somehow tapped into what Helloween is. And even though they may have their own different style of writing a song, the end result with all the pieces added to the puzzle, it sounds like a Helloween album. And I think if you're going in just with the idea that it's going to be Keeper 3 now that all the guys are back together, I mean, you obviously haven't been paying attention, which is fine. A lot of people checked out. I get that. But you got to listen to the album and take it for what it is. And it's a great fucking heavy metal record. It's fucking great. I have not been this fired up about an album. And it isn't because it's so. I mean, it's a good fucking album. I mean, I think I have a reason to be excited about this one. And they somehow didn't let the hype affect them. You know, the stress that went into this album, I'm sure it had to be in the back of their mind. Oh, is this good enough? Is this good enough?
Yeah.
It is. It's good enough. What they've done has been perfect.
You know, the older I get, dude, the fewer times I get upset about my expectations not being met.
Yep.
If the band came out and they said, guys, we're all getting back together and we're recording something that sounds like Keepers, okay. And if it comes out and it's not that, then be upset. They didn't say any of that shit. Not that I saw, at least. It's like motherfuckers who are still mad because Darkthrone doesn't make Transylvania Hunger anymore. Who cares? I just don't bother listening to new Darkthrone because I don't fucking like it.
Yeah.
So why complain? You know, if the band says they're going to do something and they don't do it, complain. If they don't say it, what's the point of getting mad about it? You know?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, Marty. Blow me up because I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a minute or two.
I'll make you bigger.
Uh-oh.
Center stage, please, Mr. Marty. All right. I'm going to start.
Love that book.
I'm going to read a little quote from this is Damn the Machine. It's the story of Noise Records.
So good.
Most folks watching this have probably read it. But I want to read a little quote from the opening page of the Helloween chapter. To get this little diatribe of mine rolling. And I quote, "The truth of the matter is the Keepers era Helloween will permanently dwarf everything the band will ever do. They were lightning in a bottle contained for less than 2 years." And yeah, it invented the entire style of European power metal. Those albums are classics. They're masterpieces. They are the scream bloody gore of power metal. They are the Transylvanian Hunger of power metal. And a lot of us, have very strong emotional attachments to those albums.
Fully agreed.
Those Keepers 2, however, came out 33 years ago. Some of the people watching this weren't even born when Keepers of the Seven Keys Part 2 came out. The band has put out something like 13 albums since then with multiple lineup changes. All of these guys have gone and done different projects and heard different music and picked up different influences along the way. I get wanting that. Like I said at the beginning of the video, when I first heard, the first few Darius albums and even like Pink Bubbles and Chameleon, I was waiting and wanting and expecting Keepers Part 3. But you know what? That ship sailed a long fucking time ago. And there's no point, no reason to expect them to go back and do that and sound like that anymore. There's just not. Now, not, just trying to, completely rain on everybody's parade. If you're really, really looking for that Keepers Part 3 experience, there's a lot of albums out there that can deliver that. And a lot of them involve members of the Helloween family. If you want to hear Keepers, this is the closest thing I've probably ever heard to Keeper of the Seven Keys Part 3.
Awesome album. Holy fuck.
It is an amazing album. It's Kai Hansen taking the vocal lead, but he's writing in pure Keepers mode on this album. If you've never heard it, Gamma Ray, Land of the Free. The first time I heard this when it came out, I just sat there and thought to myself, this is it. This was what I was waiting for through Pink Bubbles and Chameleon. Damn, I said it again. Give me a second.
He's gonna be hammered. Shit hammered.
The only time anybody should ever say chameleons with music in mind is with Script of the Bridge. This is as close as you'll ever get to Keepers of the Seven Keys Part 3. It's a glorious album. Listen to it. Love it. If you've already heard that one and you're still wanting more, Iron Savior. This is Kai Hansen and the original pre-Kai vocalist who was back in the Iron Fist days of Helloween. Pete Silk singing. And it's amazing. It's, it's a little more straightforward. It's not quite as operatic then as the Keeper stuff, but it's right in that same vein. You'll like it. Go back. Check it out. If you need both Kai and Kisk to make Keepers 3 happen for you, I've got that covered. This is the album you want to hear.
So good.
Second Unisonic, Light of Dawn. Kai and Kisk are both on this album, and it sounds glorious. It leans a little more towards their rock influences but it's still a great, great power metal. It's got all the flavor of European power metal you could ever want. It's right here. This is really close to Keepers Part 3. If you want to hear somebody else do it,
better show Lost Horizon.
You can do that. I wouldn't take that from you, Marty. I know how much that means to you. But I mean, you've got early Ed Guy with theater sound. So this is incredibly beautiful, great European power speed in the Helloween Keepers tradition. If you want it from an Irish band, you've got Wuthering Heights with Far From the Maddening Crowd. This one leans a little more folk with some of its influences, but it's glorious power metal in that Keepers tradition. South American, Viper, this album never gets talked about, and it's freaking amazing. It's Andre Matos pre-Angra, and he's got a killer voice in that Michael Kiska tradition. The point is, you've got a lot of amazing power metal albums out there that are good successors to where Helloween left off after Keepers Part 2. We don't need Helloween to do a Keepers Part 3. We shouldn't expect them to do a Keepers Part 3. It's
not fair to them to hold them to that.
It's not fair, it's not fair to hold the band to that. It's not, and you're not being fair to yourself as a fan because you're going in with the wrong expectation, and then you're kind of dumping on an album that has a lot going for it. Maybe you're not as high on it as the three of us are. That's fair, but it's a good album. It's got a lot going for it, and if you're just sitting there being like, Best Time isn't quite as good as I Want Out, and therefore I'm unhappy.
But they're similar. They're similar feels.
There are lots of there are similarities. They're paying homage to things along the way. The goofy little spoken part towards the end of Out for Glory, kind of reminds me of I Want Out a bit. This guy's like, no, I don't. I want to stay in the little I want to stay in my future world. I want to stay in my dream where everything's perfect and happy. Robot King has that same little vibe to it. This is my future where everything's perfect and glorious. I want out from where I'm at. They're paying homage to it. They're just doing it in very subtle ways. They're not going to write Eagle Fly Free Part 2, and they don't need to. So if you've listened to the album and your take was, not Keeper 7 Keys Part 3, thumbs down. Okay, flush that out of your system. Just accept it. Be like, okay, it's not that. But go back and listen to it for what it is. And you'll probably find that you're like, this is actually still a damn good album that you can enjoy a lot for what it is about what it isn't. Okay, I'm done.
I bet if they had done this album as Keeper Part 3, it probably would have hurt him some because people are then going to automatically force the comparison between this and 2. Whereas right now, we can look at it as an album with all these great members making great songs, as opposed to automatically having to compare it to Keepers Part 2. But people just need to relax, man. Just relax and be happy with a fucking good album.
Yeah, and if you don't like this album, you're not into heavy metal. It's got all the check boxes for an amazing heavy metal album for sure.
Yep.
And Alan, that was perfectly set up there.
I've said my piece. I've given people plenty of things they can check out if they need that Keepers 3 fix. we're trying to put them on the right path.
Okay, well, let's end-ish with this then. Knowing that both of you guys haven't really followed Helloween that closely since the Keeper era, having heard the new album and liking it, do you think it will change your perception on the Darius era leading up to this album? Like maybe digging into albums that you missed, or because really the Darius stuff sounds like stuff that was on the other albums as well. What do you think?
For me, yes. I know you've already yelled at me, Marty, about this. I am going to go, because it's not like I listened to those albums and was like, these suck, I'm not going to listen to them. I was being an ignorant asshole and just being like, I don't care anymore. And plus, like both of you said earlier, I was getting more into Death and Black anyway.
We all went through that, for sure.
So it wasn't like, I liked the fast speed. I didn't really so much like the anthemic kind of more epic heavy metal type sounds that were on some of the albums after the two Keepers. But I did go back and listen to Better Than Raw. And I did like it. So I was like, all right, I guess Marty was right. So I'm going to go back and listen to some of the other ones.
Tell my wife.
What I will have to do after this is you'll have to text me maybe 2 or 3 of the good ones. Because I know me, if I go back and I find the one fucking huge rocky turd of an album that has Darius on, I'm going to be like, yeah, sorry, dude, can't do it. But
I'll tell you what, right now, Master of the Rings, Time of the Oath, Better Than Raw. The first 3 with Darius, all gold.
Those are the good ones? Okay. Deal. I'm going to definitely check those out, because this is making me very happy in 2021, and I never thought a power metal album would really get to me like this late in the game. So, yeah.
Brendan Von Doom also mentioned Seven Sinners. When I first started reinvestigating the Darius era, I think that was the first one I bought, and it's a great record. I mean, it's got some really good speed metal-y type stuff on it. I think the song "Who Is Mr. Madman?" it's really fucking great. It's got more of a modern punch to it because obviously it was recorded all digital, and a little more modern crunch in the guitars. But it's a great album as well. Anyway, the topic. How about you, Alan?
I would just quickly follow up on one thing Myke said there. That's really cool and very interesting that that you use that phrase that Helloween kind of gets to you that way that you wouldn't expect it. And I think they've always had that magic about them, from time to time. I think that's one reason people gravitate, and have such fond memories of those Keeper albums is those albums were a real anomaly when they came out, that you got a heavy metal band here. And instead of being all, we're tough guys, we're going to fuck you up, we're going to scowl in every picture, and, it's going to be beers and hookers and blow and all this stuff, they're playing with fucking pumpkins in their pictures, and they're making stupid faces, and they're singing these songs like Rise and Fall and Dr. Stein, and you love it. Mm-hmm. A lot of folks have, told me over the years that, Helloween was a band that they did that same thing to them. They made them happy listening to that music. One of my buddies who grew up, hanging with a very rough crowd around, Detroit, was always credited those Keeper albums as one of the reasons he never got into a lot of the gang and drug and racist bullshit that a lot of his friends did, because he really connected with the vibe of those Keepers albums. It's just like, nah, I like this positive vibe. I don't need all that downer shit.
Yeah.
Other folks, friends, even back in high school, who barely listened to anything, heavy at all, they would really click with those Helloween albums when I'd be playing them in the background, because it had, such a positivity. It made them happy. And so, yeah, it's just something really special about the band that it's out of character for a heavy metal band. In some regard, it should never have worked, but it really, really did. But I just want to comment on that, because I thought that was a really cool comment you made, Myke. Back to your question, Marty. The bottom line is Andy Darius is never going to be one of my favorite heavy metal singers.
No,
he does not have a bad voice. And it's not because I'm no longer, I'm way past ever comparing him to Michael Kiske. That shit's long in the past. He's not got a bad voice. He has a distinctive voice, and I like that he has his own character when he sings. I'm never going to put him on a list of 10 favorite or 25 favorite or whatever vocalists. So am I going to go back and get a lot of Andy Darris albums? I don't know. I kind of lukewarm on the idea.
I know where you got those two from.
You can't. Do you really need to explore that? It's hard to say. Maybe someday I'll get around to picking up one of them. Okay. The video can't lie, I guess. So yeah, definitely checking some more of that out. As I mentioned earlier tonight, I had these two. I got these when they came out. Got rid of them a long time ago. I purged out part of the CD collection around 2006, and these went. So it's been a solid 15 years since I'd heard either of these albums. And putting them back on and playing them, what really amazed me is I instantly remember all of them. This isn't I have to go back, I don't this is a good song. I never really caught that one. I can probably sing 90% of Master of the Rings, and I haven't heard it in a decade and a half.
Wow.
Time of the Oath is about the same. These albums are not as good as the ones that came before that album. I'm out of beer, so I'm not going to say it. But they are very good albums. They are good power metal albums. They breathed a lot of life back into the band after that album. And yeah, the good on these definitely outweighs the bad. And now with a couple of decades of maturity, I can see that and I can appreciate them for what they are. The others haven't got this far yet. These are here. Stay tuned. We'll check back sometime and see what I think of those. But yeah, I'm ready to treat the Andy Darris albums as their own thing. I don't need to compare them to the Keepers albums. I don't need to really compare them to the new album even. I'm willing to give them a fair shake and measure them on their own merits, not the merits of what they did before or what they've done now with the big 7-man lineup.
Darris, is he the world's best metal singer? No. Is he a good songwriter? He is. And that's kind of how his voice fits in well with what they're doing. Like I said, in a lot of ways, I think he saved the band. I mean, I don't know who the hell I can't imagine them having someone else in there. It's been Darris has been in the band longer than Kai and Michael put together. After all these years, it's his band. It's got his stamp all over it now. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. I think what he has brought to it is enriched the band. Even though the early album, I will say the earlier album or the Darris stuff, there's always a little bit more of a commercial feeling to it. Not in a sickening, gross way, but I mean, like you listen to Better and Raw. I mean, there's some really commercial songs on that album, but they're good. I mean, they're good, catchy fucking songs. There's just no denying. I Can, that song I Can, Push. Yeah. But then there's a song like Revelation, which sounds like old Helloween. It's kind of like a speed metal song. Their old drummer, what the fuck was his name? Ulrich something or other.
Uli Kusch.
Uli Kusch, that's right. Yeah. He wrote that song. But
yeah, he's a great drummer.
He's a great drummer, and that's a great fucking song, and it sounds like old Helloween to me with Darris singing.
They had commercial songs on the Keepers albums. They had tracks like "I Want Out" and Dr. Stein was a very good selling single. It charted very well when it was the lead single put out for Keepers 2.
Well, even songs like
it's a silly, goofy song.
That was never a singer, but that was never a single. But We Got the Right. I mean, that song could have been a hit too.
They had those songs back then too. Hello, some people, can mention that sometimes the band seems silly or goofy. They've always had that though. That wasn't something that Darris brought to the band. No. It wasn't something that they reinvented now with aliens escaping from Area 51 in a music video. They've always, you go back and look at their earliest press photos, even before Kiske was in the band, and they're constantly just goofing off like kids. They're having fun and being silly. Even they had healthy egos that tripped up the band along the way, but they always had this lighthearted thing in their music and in their behavior.
Every song on Chameleon's a banger. You better drink to that.
Matt, we'll talk later.
You're like this here. People think I had problems with Darius coming from a glam band like Pink Cream 69. I bought 2 Pink Cream 69 albums. The first one was really glammy and kind of gross. The second one was really good. I enjoyed it, actually. It sounded like you could tell Darius was writing a lot of songs for it because it sounded a little bit more like his era of Helloween, you know.
It's probably a fair point. I'm sure that didn't help matters any.
Yeah.
I mean, Andy, you know, he had, you know, impossible shoes to fill and huge expectations to live up. He could have come, you know, from fucking Metallica and he was still going to have gotten shit for trying to, you know, again, take Kiska's job.
But the fucking balls of that guy to do it, to stand in there and take, I mean, he's been taking that shit for years. And, you know, look, I'm not Kiska, but he can get through the songs live, but it's not the same. You know, it's not the same.
Sure.
But he can still do it. And watching some old live stuff during the Master of the Rings era, he struggles with the Kiska songs. But then seeing him do those songs on the Pumpkins United Blu-ray that came out, he's doing a great job singing with Kiska. I mean, they sing some of the high stuff together, and it sounds great. I mean, their voices somehow connect really well. So, I mean, he's learned over the years how to do it. You almost have to at that point, but
yeah.
Well, that's it. I think we covered the basis. Does anybody else have anything more to add before we pull the plug?
I'll throw out one question. Since, you know, we all agree this was a success, you know, of a release and, you know, a collaboration, what do you think they go from here? Do they try to do this again? Do they do this as just a one-off and then, you know, next time they're back to a 5-piece? Do they keep this sound just going? What do you think the future holds? What is the future world of Helloween?
I don't know. I think where I'm at with it, because clearly I'm not as much of a diehard as you or Marty. So where I'm at with it, if they do another one, cool. If they go back to a 5-piece, cool. I'm gonna listen either way because now I'm back in. So I'm happy either way, man. If this is just a one-off, fantastic album, then I'm fine with it because it still exists. I can listen to it whenever. If they go back to a 5-piece and they make a couple more albums that aren't quite as good as this, that's all right too. You know, as long as they don't go and change their sound completely and make, you know, something super weird like a Reload or if they, as long as they don't go like the direction of At the Gates and get back together for no fucking reason to make a bunch of really mediocre, lifeless albums, you know. But as long as they're still Helloween and they're still making music like Helloween, then I'm fucking cool with it, man.
Well, after a bunch of interviews I've seen, it sounds like the general consensus is it is their intention to continue forward to the foreseeable future. It kind of sounds like they want this to stay and keep going as long as the band keeps going. And I've seen 2 different interviews with Kai, where one, he was doing an interview with Liketh, and he said that Gamma Ray, you know, the demands of Helloween are going to keep him pretty busy. He doesn't really know the future status of Gamma Ray. But then I seen another video where the guy interviewing him was very much a Gamma Ray fan, and he said, "Yeah, I, you know, that's my baby. I don't know if I can let it go. I told the guys when I came in that I have to do this too." So I don't know what the future of Gamma Ray is, and I would imagine the success of Helloween at this point has put a clouded question mark over Gamma Ray, because I'm sure Gamma Ray sells great. I mean, their last album, slipping my mind with the name of it. It was a great album.
Empire of the Sand?
Empire of the Undead.
Undead.
It was a great record. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. If they went out on that, great. He has employed a new singer to sing the Gamma Ray stuff live for some of the parts and stuff. I don't know. I think his voice is, I don't know if it's as good as it used to be, but so obviously, you know, the band, if there's another singer on it, it might change a little bit. It's hard to say, but I think they're going to put out another record, at least one. I think it's probably going to be just as good. I mean, you're not changing the songwriting formula. You're not rearranging or taking away any of the songwriters. You know, will it be as good? You know, who knows? That's for the future to present. But I'm looking forward to it. And I know they're going to be touring all next year, but I've also heard they've also started writing songs for the new album. So it's exciting, man. I'm psyched. Even if Kai and Michael weren't there, I would have been excited about New Helloween. But and if they go back to a 5-piece, I'm fine with that too. But this combination really worked great. They put out an amazing album. And do I think they can do it again? Yeah, I think they can. This is what they've done for their entire lives. This is what they know. Of course, they're not gonna put out shit. I mean, even their middle era albums, half to 3/4 of the albums are really good. There might be a song here or there that are like, but I mean, if you get this modern day, as long as albums are nowadays, especially in metal, if you get 3/4 of an album that's really good, that's a win. That's a win.
True. Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, this album is proof of concept that they've demonstrated they have the chemistry and this formula can work and work extremely well.
Yep.
If they decide to move forward with it, that is great. My only concern would be I hope that they don't rapidly sort of burn through, this kind of, reunion magic and start doing very mediocre stuff, kind of the way that what's happened to Iron Maiden, with each successive album since Brave New World. That they had a couple of good ones there, but after the albums were really they were becoming very long and very drawn out and very tired sounding, and there just wasn't much there to hear. And I really just hope Helloween doesn't go down that path, that if they want to keep it together and keep it going, that they keep it, at this level of quality. And if they decide not to, if they want to be like, hey, we proved we could do it, we have nothing else left to prove, let's hang it up and retire and do German things and German retirement, hey, that's cool too. But yeah, they've shown they can do it. They have done it. Hopefully they can recapture it again if they decide to keep it going.
Well, there you have it. We have spoken. Thank you all for hanging out with us tonight and talking about Helloween. We really appreciate it. Myke, again, it was great having you, man. Thank you so much for coming back with us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. These are always fun.
Great having you on board.
We'll have to do it again. But everybody, thank you so much. Check out the video if you're just catching part of it. It'll be on my page in its entirety. Have fun with it. And we will see you next week.
Sounds good. Everybody take care.